Hello everyone, and welcome to my video of covering some of the material you need to know as you're preparing for your CompTIA 22902 exam. And in this session we are going over the remainder of domain 2, which is over those other operating systems that are not Microsoft, as well as security. So let's go ahead and take a look at some session questions here, and as you follow along in our session you'll see that we've covered quite a bit of information so far, but we are at the point where we're talking about domains 2 and 3, and then we will take time to cover 4 and 5. As you can see with 2 and 3 we cover about a third of the exam, with domain 1 being the heaviest part of 29%, and then we will take a look at software troubleshooting, operational procedures in the end. And with the troubleshooting, that's really just, do you know how everything else works? And as you are studying, you should be able to do this section fairly easy because the troubleshooting is really built into all of the other domains. Let's go ahead now and take a look at our questions, and we'll go through a few here. With question 1, ask yourself, which of the following are proprietary closed source operating systems used in mobile devices today? Now you are told here to select 2. Sometimes you may get a question that says select all that apply. In this question I'm giving you the choice of selecting 2 so that you know out of these 5 which 2 to select. As you read through those questions, you should now have the answer that of course there are only 2 out of these 5 that are proprietary closed source operating systems, and that is going to be with Windows 10 Mobile and iOS, because as you know, everything Apple is closed. There's no ability to look at their source code. If we jump to the next question here, which of the following is the best step to take to avoid having your mobile device infected with malware? Take a second to look through these 5 options. As you look through those, there's only one that even makes sense of being the best step, and that is capitalized for a reason. The best step to take to avoid having your mobile device infected with malware is make sure you do your updates. Just like with your desktops, always let the updates occur. There's a reason those updates are out there, for vulnerabilities as well as new features. So keep your operating system updated. You might find that you can avoid some malware because a detection was made that could be a backdoor or some type of vulnerability in the code. So the update will fix that. Our question number 3 here, which of the following will increase the level of security for personal and confidential information on a mobile device if the device is somehow lost or stolen? There are 2 options here that make sense for increasing the level of security for your personal and confidential information, just in case that mobile device is stolen. As you're looking here, you'll see that only 2 make sense, of course, and that is to make sure you are using the screen lock, and if something comes up, if you've enabled remote wipe, then no matter who has that device, you can connect to it and remote wipe it so that all of your confidential and personal information are lost forever, so that the bad guy doesn't get to have access to that. Number 4, a mobile device user has just entered their user ID and password to access an online account. The user immediately receives a text message with a unique PIN that must be entered before they are granted access to the account. Which of the following describes the security method being used with this situation here, in that they just put in their user ID and password and now they're getting a text with a unique PIN that they must be entered? Of course, we are using 2 factors here. We could have more, and that's why the answer is multi-factor authentication. We are using more than 1 factor for authenticating who the user is. So this way we are making sure that it's not just one mode of authentication, such as a user ID and password. So it's something they know, the user ID and password, and something they have in the PIN number that was just sent to them via text message. Question number 5, a mobile device user is asking for your help in securing their mobile device. Which of the following screen lock methods is least secure and generally not recommended for security? We've already talked about one of these. Another one has to do with biometrics. Well, two of them have to do with biometrics. So that leaves the only choice that is definitely the least secure, and that is the swipe lock. We know that the passcode is something that we know. The fingerprint and the face are both things who we are. Swipe lock is going to leave trace elements on your screen for someone to be able to guess the pattern that you're using. That is why it is least secure. Number 6, a technician is troubleshooting a mobile device that is experiencing very slow performance, and the decision has been made to perform a factory reset of that mobile device. Which of the following actions should the technician take before starting the reset process? Take a second to look at these 5 choices and then come back. So if we take a look at what the question is actually asking us, which of the following actions should the technician take before starting the reset process? Well, before would be to back up all of the data. We always make sure to back up all of the user data before we do anything else. Because if we make a change, we do something, and the data is no longer accessible, we don't have backups, then that's a bad day for everybody. Question number 7. Which of the following security methods would most likely have the greatest negative impact on device performance by consuming processing resources? We have 4 options available here. And the one that will have the greatest negative impact on device performance by consuming processing resources is, of course, a full drive encryption. Moving on to number 8. Which of the following symptoms is most likely related to leaked personal files and data on a mobile device? Which of these 5 symptoms is most likely related to leaked information on a mobile device? Well, for that to occur, our data transmission is over limit. A frozen system, well, you're not going to be able to leak anything because it's locked. Dim display, you can still see things. No Bluetooth connectivity, that has nothing to do with anything. Touchscreen non-responsive, you can't do anything with the screen, so you can't leak your data. So that is why data transmission over limit. This is a symptom that is how you will know that your files, if you're using way much more data than usual, someone's gained access to your personal files and data. Number 9, which feature is built into a Mac computer? That's right, we are now talking about one of these other operating systems for Mac, the Apple OS X here. Which feature is built into that Mac computer so you can switch between the Mac OS and a Windows OS? This feature's been around a long time. And the only one that makes sense, of course, is Boot Camp. And here is what Boot Camp looks like so that you can see how your Macintosh storage drive, I don't like HD for hard drive, but your storage drive will be partitioned. On this one, you can see that we have a Mac OS X available on one partition, and the other is dedicated to a Windows operating system. That is Boot Camp. Number 10, a Mac user is trying to locate a file by name. Which Mac OS utility can be used to find the file that they're trying to locate by name? This utility that is on the Mac OS, of course, is the Spotlight utility. And with Spotlight searching, you can look for all your files and find them very quickly. And this is the screen that you will see when you are on your Mac system. This is a version of it so that you can look for your files. If you need to access that, one way that you can do that is you can use the command key plus the spacebar, because as you know, on our Mac machines, we have the command key on each side of the spacebar. So if you want to clear the Spotlight search box, let's say you've already done a search, you want to look for another one, you can use the escape button here on the top left. And if you want a shortcut for closing your Spotlight menu when you're done, just hit the escape button twice. Question number 11. A technician wants to install a new copy of the Mac OS on a Mac computer from a Time Machine backup. And that was one of our options in a previous question, Time Machine. That is for backing up. Which of the following tools would the technician use to perform the task of installing a new copy of the Mac operating system onto a Mac computer from a Time Machine backup? This one's not too tricky. We've already talked about Boot Camp. Hopefully you know what Mission Control is. When we see that we're recovering for a reason, we're recovering using a backup, that should jump out to you that, of course, that is the macOS recovery utility. And you'll see that this is what that looks like if you're going to use that. And you can see here, the second option in our macOS utilities is reinstall macOS. Reinstall a new copy of your Mac operating system. Here's a screen what you'll see like when you're going to restore from Time Machine. Want to make sure that you are familiar with these screens because you might see these on your A+ exam. And when you're going to restore from, here's how you're going to select. You're going to have a list of different time-stamped restore points, and you need to say, hey, which one do I want to use? I only have one, so I'm going to use that one there, and that will restore back to that date and time, however the machine status was when the backup was created. Question number 12. We're moving into Linux now. A technician is working on a Linux computer from the terminal and needs to determine the present working directory. Which command will display the information the technician is looking for? You're working on a Linux computer using the terminal, of course. You need to determine your present working directory from your screen. To do so, you're going to use the pwd command. And you can see here, I've got a working machine. Change directory to the Python folder. But I want to make sure I'm in the right spot before I do anything else, so I do the pwd command, and that will show me my full path here. Home, Vivec, scripts, Python. That is the current present working directory. That's where I'm currently at. You would think it's common sense, but that command is there for that specific reason. Let's look at question number 13 now. Which of the following is a Linux terminal command that will show the most comprehensive information about the shutdown command? Now, here we want to know what utility, what tool, what of a command can we use to get the most comprehensive information, not about just the shutdown command, but any, and that would be referring to the manuals. The man page, short for manual page, is a form of software documentation that's usually found on our Linux operating systems. You as a user can invoke this man page by using the man command and then the name of whatever command you're wanting to know more about. To shut down the system for a terminal session, as we talked about here, wanting to know more about the shutdown, we need to be a super user. So to shut down the system from our terminal session, we need to either sign in or use the SU or root account, and then we would type the rest of the command for, the shutdown, and then let's say the -R switch, and then we would put like now because we want it to be shut down now. Now, if you run this command, it may take you several moments for all the processes to be terminated that are currently running on your Linux system. But once all those processes have been terminated, your Linux will shut down. And then with our -R switch that we put in there, that is telling the system to, once you shut down, I need you to reboot yourself. So that's a little bit about the manuals as well as the shutdown command. And here you can see this is a screen of showing the manual for shutdown command. So these manual pages can be very helpful, and just knowing that you type the word man before the name of the command can help you get all the information you need if you maybe just want to know some of the parameters or even the path that needs to be used for the proper command. So make sure you utilize that and memorize that is how you get into learning more about your commands. Number 14 here, a technician is logged into a Linux computer, and they're logged in as John D. And they need to reset group ownership for the file named report.txt in the John D home directory. And that's a lot of information, but just think it through. So which of the following commands will perform this function for this group ownership to be reset on the specific file report.txt that's located in the John D home directory, and we're logged in as John D? Well, to do this, there's only one of these that makes sense, and that's the change ownership, or CHOWN command there. Change ownership allows you to change the file owner and group so that the new owner has the ability to make changes. And here I've given you an example of how to do that. Here with this screen you can see I've got a lot here, and here's how to see what files are on your computer, and then we're going to change the ownership to the root account. So you see I've ran the ls command. This is going to list all of the different folders that are available on my current working directory. To change to one of these folders, I do a cd and then I give it the name of the folders. And yes, with Linux it is case sensitive. So now I see, oh okay, now my directory has been changed to documents. I'm going to run the ls command again to see what all is in here. And you can see I have got I created a file here, and I've given it some sample text, and that's used the cat command there, and I've given it what name I want for this file, and I've just put in some information here. You know, this is just how we do it. And to get out of the creation of the file back to our prompt, we just hit Control D. Once there, I'm going to do an ls, and you can see that when I list what files or folders are located in my current working directory of documents, it shows that I have one file that's present, and that is the one I just created, the raw and sample file.txt. From here, I want to see what permissions are currently there and who has ownership, who has what permissions. And you can see they've got the read write, and one group just has read. So if I want to, and I'm not going to go too in depth in this because you should be looking into this as you're learning more about the Linux operating systems and using the terminal and learning the different commands you need to know for your A+. But if I want to change the ownership, now I can do change ownership to root for the file raw and sample file.txt, and that will, I can only do it in the directory that I'm currently working where that file exists. So that's a little bit of how all of that CHOWN or change ownership command works. Here we have question number 15. A Linux technician wants to set the permission for a file to allow all users a read-only access. All existing permissions for group members and owner should remain untouched. Which command should the technician use assuming that the file is located in the present working directory and the file name is, you guessed it, test.txt? So we want to allow all users read-only access, but we want to make sure that the group members and owner, those permissions are not modified at all. To do that, we are going to change or mod O+R to the file test.txt to allow for the read-only access to be applied to all the users. And we have lots of different options and arguments for our commands. For me, the mode for this file is read write. So the group is read write and the rest of the world is read only. So as the owner of the file, I have read write permissions, and I showed you that in a previous picture for that, and I'll show you that to try to bring that up again for you. But you can see here in the one in this file, I have got, as the owner, I've got read write. The group as a whole has read write, and the rest of the group, the rest of the world, they have read only, and that's why you see that -R. So by running this chmod command, that is how we change that permission. Number 16. A user is complaining about sluggish performance on their Linux system, and the technician suspects a running process is what's consuming excessive processor resources. Which of the following Linux commands would the technician most likely use to locate that offending process? As you are going through and learning all of the different commands, you definitely want to be able to realize this one, that to look for those processes, you need to run the PS command. Now, the PS command, or process status command, is used to provide information about the current running processes, including their process identification numbers, the PID number there you see on the left. And it's going to print a snapshot of the current processes. It's going to print, like here we're going to see, the basic commands. We can see how many of those, and the TTY is the time or terminal status. We have lots of different information that we can get by running this PS, or this process status command. With the status, one thing that we can see here is whether our processes are sleeping, that's what the S is for, the SS, or if they are running. And we can see the time that's been spent on those processes. So make sure when you're practicing your commands, you are running them so that you can see, hey, this is what this screen should look like, because that's very typical on the CompTIA exams, is to give you a screen and you have to identify which process or command was ran, even what arguments were used to get to that screen. Number 17, a technician's logged into a Linux system with a user account that has been assigned root privileges. Each time that technician attempts to run a specific terminal command, they get the message, permission denied. What's the most likely reason for this message? I alluded to this earlier. For them to be able to do anything, the command needs to be preceded with sudo. Sudo runs a command as a super user. And this is important because we need to limit access to admin duties like that of installing software or viewing logs. So make sure, as you see here, we run the sudo command so that it says, hey, we are a super user. When we do that, we're going to be prompted for our sudo or super user password, and that's how this will look. So make sure you can recognize that and know what the sudo stands for. Which of the following is a disk management tool that's built into our Mac operating system and is useful for finding and repairing disk problems? You know what that is in the Microsoft world. Well, do you know what it is here in the macOS? I can't make this up. The answer that you probably thought was ridiculous is the correct answer, and that's first aid. Yes, there is a command, first aid, here in the macOS. We can simply use Spotlight to search for disk utility. Once you are in disk utility, you will see that we have a first aid tab that you can then click on, and that will tell you about if you're having any type of troubles with your disk system, or if one's unavailable, whatever the case may be. But however many disks you have on your machine, right here is where you can go and see if there are any potential problems. Question number 19. You have a user who just purchased a Windows phone. Not a lot of them, but this individual did. He wants to know what the name of the virtual assistant is on their new Windows phone. What do you tell him? Well, the virtual assistant on Windows in general is, you guessed it, Cortana. Nearly all of your mobile operating systems come with at least one virtual assistant. With Windows, it is Cortana, the name of their virtual assistant. Windy is just a made-up one. iOS is what uses Siri, and our Amazon devices are what currently use Alexa or Echo. Number 20. Which Linux command is used to copy and convert files from one file format to another? The DD command. The DD, or data definition command, is what's going to be used to copy files, and it can also be used to convert files from one format to another, such as .txt to .docx, whatever crazy thing you're wanting to do. It can also be used to copy blocks of data from a file and to back up the boot sector of the hard drive. Now we've got the CP command. This is the first time we've seen the CP command, and the CP command will copy files, but you cannot use it for any type of file conversion. So if you selected CP for copy, that is incorrect because you cannot change the format. Number 21, you're consulting with a mobile phone company. And they tell you that for a new usage tracking program, they want to use the 15-digit number that identifies a user and the network. Which number are they looking for on this mobile device? If you've never looked this up, hopefully this screen will help you. They are looking for the IMSI, or International Mobile Subscriber Identity. This is going to be a unique 15-digit identifier that's going to describe a specific mobile user as well as that user's network. You're going to see that it's composed of 3 different elements typically, and it's going to have your mobile country code, a mobile network code, and a mobile station identifier. Now you might have selected IMEI. IMEI is the International Mobile Equipment Identity. It too is a 15-digit serial number, but it identifies that specific phone. Question number 22. Your company produces a software and employs about 20 developers. They need to program apps for different operating systems. You decide to purchase a cloud-based service to support the development team. What type of service should you purchase so that they can develop their programs and then test them in environments other than where they were developed? We're looking down through here, saying that we were going to test them and develop them both. Then that leads us to platform as a service. PaaS, platform as a service, however you want to call it. This is going to add a layer to the one right below it, the infrastructure as a service. Hopefully you can see that's here, this cloud service model here. That's why I said this is what's going to add the service. When we are in an infrastructure as a service and we want to add like runtime and things like that, that's where we're going to go up to the next cloud computing model, and that is platform as a service. So make sure when you get questions like this, you can quickly identify each of those. So the platform as service, this can be helpful to software developers. So the vendor is going to manage the various hardware platforms. When they do that, this frees up the software developer to focus on just building their application as well as worrying about how to scale it. The best platform as a service solutions are going to allow for the client to export their developed programs and then test them or run them in other environments other than just the one that they use to develop that application. So make sure you find some resources on understanding when we're making those changes from going from on-premise to using cloud services, how the big cloud services actually work and what they entail. You know, the highest of the 3 levels of cloud service that we really look at is going to be software as a service, or SaaS. SaaS is going to handle the task of managing the software as well as deploying that software, and it's going to include the platform infrastructure. If we think about, we have some models in place that are being used that resemble this. If you're using the Google suite, such as Google Docs or Microsoft Office 365, maybe you're even using some cloud storage systems like Box.com or Dropbox. These are all very relative software as a service cloud platforms. Let's take a look now at question 23 in this group. Your network has 20 Windows 8.1 workstations for some reason. When it comes to managing the patches and the updates, which of the following 5 options or 4 options is the best practice for when it comes to managing your patching and updating? As you read through these, Some are going to seem similar, but one is the one we're looking for, and that is we need to apply our patches and our updates immediately after they become available. Now, if you're using a controlled environment where you have a test environment to see what type of impact patches and updates are going to have on your current configurations, that is the best solution. But in general practice, there's a reason the patches and updates are out there, and we should employ those and deploy them. If we're on a Windows machine, obviously we're going to use Windows Update to manage the process for us. But patches and updates should be applied regardless of the severity of the issue, and they should be applied immediately when available. Question 24. We have another Windows 8.1 workstation, and we want to prevent a potential hacker from booting to a CD if the optical drive is on that machine. What should we make sure that we employ, or what should we do to help prevent this from happening? What we should do is we should set a BIOS or UEFI password based on the age of your system. Now, a strong password for your operating system will help protect the operating system, but does not protect the computer in general. So if a user can get into the BIOS or UEFI, then they can change the boot sequence of the computer as it's starting, and they can change it to boot to a CD, which will allow them to do something malicious. If we want to make sure that we avoid this happening, protect and implement the system, or protect the system by implementing a BIOS or UEFI password. That way they can't get any further into the normal operating procedure of the computer, such as the operating system. They can go no further. They can't get through the BIOS or the UEFI. And question number 25. Which type of security solution generally functions as a packet filter, and it can perform some stateful packet inspection? Well, we know that antivirus or anti-malware can't do any of that. We know a VPN is just a tunneled connection. So that leaves us two options, and only one makes sense, and that's the firewall. Firewalls are among those first lines of defense we have on our network. And we know that the basic purpose of having a firewall, whether it be software or hardware, is to isolate one network from another. Firewalls are going to function as one or more of different characteristics. They can do packet filtering. They can be a proxy firewall, or they can be a stateful inspection firewall. And if we think about stateful inspection, this is kind of like taking a snapshot. The firewall remembers the information between states, and that's why the stateful is much more powerful than the stateless inspection. Question 26. Several employees at your company have been tailgating to gain access to secure areas, which is a terrible practice, and it is not protecting our data and our equipment. Which of the following security method is the best choice for stopping this practice of tailgating to gain access to secure areas? Well, of these four choices, the only one that makes sense is a man trap. I use the term tailgating, and hopefully you know by now what that is, but tailgating just refers to being so close to someone else that when they enter a building, that you're able to come in right behind them without needing to have a whatever entrance method is being used, whether it's a key card or whether it's a security token, badge, whatever the case may be. That's what tailgating does. Now, if we are employing man traps, these are devices such as a small room that limits access to one or fewer individuals, and this is going to help prevent tailgating. You can see here with this image here, there's only supposed to be one person enter a room. We have the ability to detect that there are multiple people in this room, so they are trapped in there. Security professionals will be deployed, and we'll find out why there are more than one person there. Our employees are educated with how to enter the building, and if we have someone trying to do that, it could be trying to gain access to other things. We're going to stop that right away with the use of a man trap. Question 27. On our network, there are multiple systems that users need to access, such as a Windows domain, a box site for our cloud storage of files, and SAP. You want to configure the network such that users do not need to remember separate usernames and passwords for each site. Their login credentials will be good for different systems. Which technology should you use so that they have their login credentials applied to multiple areas, such as our domain, our cloud site, our ERP system? Which of these models are we looking at? Well, we know it's not the encrypted file system. So one that really jumps out and you should know right away is single sign-on, SSO. So one of the bigger problems larger systems must deal with is the need for users to access lots or multiple different systems or applications they have access to. And in some cases that might require those individuals to remember multiple accounts and passwords. So we employ what's called single sign-on to give users access to all the applications and systems that they need when they log in. So make sure that you know what single sign-on is. And you can see here with the single sign-on, this one key or piece of information gets deployed and gives the user access to all 4 services as they need. Well, that is it for this video test prep session for the CompTIA A+ exam. Good luck as you continue to study, and always feel free to reach out, but make sure that you're looking at the domains, looking at the objectives, and going through and making sure you know information about each of those. And if there's an area you might feel a little weak on, such as the other operating systems, make sure you put more focus on that. Maybe it's as simple as opening up a virtual machine, getting a Linux distribution, making sure you put that on there, and then working through the terminal, practicing the commands. Definitely practice, because I want each of you to be well prepared and get your A+ certifications. Thank you, everyone.